somebody asks me about a particular topic, my goal is to come up with a story and then share 2 or 3 points so that because a lot of times stories stick to the brain, so they can remember the story. The goal is that they will also hopefully remember the points that go along with that story.
Welcome to the EQ Gangster podcast, where you will learn practical tools to grow your mental and emotional health and intelligence to be the best version of yourself, both at work and at home. It is real, raw, and transformational. The journey of emotional growth isn't easy, but it's worth it. I believe in you.
EQ Gangsters, I want to share an episode with you based on a recent conversation I had with a family I met at a gas station. This is going to be delayed social awareness, a missed opportunity for specific encouragement and affirmation. So we are doing this big long road trip and stopped at a gas station, and in true fashion, our less than intelligent golden doodle started barking at a gentleman who's walking his dog at the gas station in the grass. Our dog loses his mind. Anytime he sees a dog, loses his mind. People he's cool with, dogs he's not cool with. He's kind of like a grumpy old man. And I saw, it was a thin gentleman wearing a red polo shirt, khaki slacks. I didn't think much of it. I'm telling my dog to shut up and stop, barking in the car when we're all sitting there. I just got gas. And boom, we get headed back on the road. And 3 hours later, we stop at another gas station. I get out, start pumping gas. Well, who pulls up next to us is the same guys that were at the last gas station that our dog was barking at. And so I'm like, oh snap, here we go. Our dog is gonna lose his mind and start barking again. And plus I'm like, see what these guys are up to, since we just were at the last gas station with him and just happened to run into him again. So guy gets out and I'm like, hey bro, we were just at the last gas station together. And he's like, what? I said, my dog was barking at your dog. He said, oh, that was you? No way. And so he saw my taco shirt and he said, are you some kind of chef? I said, no bro, I am definitely some kind of eater though. I love me some tacos. And I said, why do you ask that question? He said, well, man, I've done a lot of things. One of those is a chef. He said, and I said, well, what do you do? What's your main hustle? He said, because that was kind of a side hustle. It was being a chef and a caterer and stuff. And he said, well, I'm actually on my way to Nebraska because I want to work with foster care children, teens and stuff, and I want to give back. I'm like, wow, dude, that's amazing. Like, why? What do you mean we want to give back? He said, well, I'm a foster care kid myself. I came from the foster care system. And this gentleman, I don't know, he's in his 40s maybe, and so he said, hey, this is my brother. So met his brother, and he said, was coming from the Dallas area, and kind of had a significant life event happen. He's like, man, so I wanted to kind of get back, kind of recalibrated. And one of the ways he said of me feeling like I could get recalibrated is stopping kind of doing the chef stuff, and I also tried this corporate gig, and I felt a great way that I might be able to recalibrate myself is going to give back to, again, challenged teens in the foster care system, because that's where I came from. I'm like, man, that's amazing. And I said, bro, let me give you some encouragement. And I showed him my tattoo, right? For those on YouTube, you can see what I'm doing. Got my left hand up. It's got a gift on fire. And I've talked about this before in other podcast episodes, but it's got a Bible verse on it, 2 Timothy chapter 1, verses 6 and 7. So I'm at the gas pump talking to my buddy Clint. Shout out Clint if you ever listen to this episode. Check him out on TikTok at Creole Clint. And he's from New Orleans, and he's like a super like soul chef, like southern, Cajun food. And so big shout out again at Creole Clint. If y'all can follow him, that'd be awesome. And he's got another TikTok account as well, because he said one of the other things he's trying to do is become a motivational speaker. Like he's like that. He's like, so once I started going to my tattoo, he's like, do you do any motivational speaking? I said, yes, I do speaking. And so I said, he said, man, that's my ultimate goal. I really want to be a motivational speaker. And so we'll check this verse out. So boom. So here's a tattoo. And I said, fan into flames. So 2 Timothy chapter 1, verses 6 and 7. He's like, dude, and his brother came up about that time. He said, dude, my brother's name is Timothy. I'm like, well, see, there you go. Ask and you shall receive. Right? So 2 Timothy chapter 1, verses 6 and 7, fan into flames the gift that God has given you. Verse 7, for you have not been given a spirit of timidity or of fear, but of power, of love, and a sound mind. Well, why on earth would I have that on my hand for me to look at every single day? Because for me, I did not fan into flame the gifts that God has given me for most of my life. I buried them in the backyard, which is actually going to be one of my next tattoos, which comes from Matthew 25:14-30, the parable of the talents. I feel like God has given me 5 talents, but I behaved like the 1 talent guy and buried my gifts in the backyard because of my people-pleasing addiction, all my emotional dysfunction. I could not fully receive and embrace the promises that I feel God has given me and entrusted to me and empowered me with until my emotional growth healing that's been happening over the past 4 years. And so I said, bro, because we asked me, hey, how do you, what kind of advice? Like, man, I read all kinds of books. I'm reading Les Brown. I'm reading Eric Thomas. I'm reading all kinds of motivational, Zig Ziglar. I'm like, bro, those are the OGs, of motivation and that kind of thing. He said, well, how did you get into it? And I said, because he said, sometimes I get distracted and I will just kind of go off on a tangent. And so anyways, I gave him some tips. I said, for one example would be to think of all the stories that have happened to you in your life, those significant emotional events. They can be positive or negative. Write those stories down, and then with each of those stories, come up with 3 points. And I said, don't do 4 or 5, 3 points. And because that's kind of what the brain, that's the kind of bandwidth of a brain is 3 points. And so 1 to 3 points for each of these stories. I said, but if somebody asked me, how did you get into emotional intelligence? How do I get in this field? I only have 1 story, and I've shared that hundreds of times. And so I've got that one down, but it's 1 story. But if somebody asked me about a particular topic, my goal is to come up with a story and then share 2 or 3 points so that because a lot of times stories stick to the brain so they can remember the story. The goal is that they will also hopefully remember the points that go along with that story. So I shared that with them. I'm like, bro, you've had some amazing life experiences, and by amazing I mean both positive and negative, because he was very open and vulnerable with me, and I'm like, bro, I can't imagine, dude. I'm sorry that stuff has happened to you. Like that's brutal. And I said, but dude, think about what you've learned from those lessons, from those experiences. I said, dude, I know you could probably give me 10 points right now from each of those stories that you just shared, and just come up with, maybe multiple sets of 3 points of each of your stories. And I said, don't give me Les Brown's points. Don't give me Zig Ziglar's points. I want to know Clint's points, right? If I want to find out Zig Ziglar stuff, I'll go to Zig Ziglar. But I'm not talking to Zig Ziglar. I'm talking to Clint. So that's how you stay focused. Is what was the question, and also come up with a list of topics, not only stories that you can remember, but also come up with a list of topics that you feel you could come up with some good stories for, and then when you come up with the topics, attach it to a story that you've experienced, and then come up with 3 points for each of those topics and stories, and get those down, and then teach that story and those 3 points to somebody else. Maybe it's your brother, maybe it's your mother, a friend, a family member, a colleague, something like that, and just get some repetition sharing those stories and those points. And so I said, bro, you absolutely, you've got amazing stories. You have very specific stories that are just for you based on your experience. Dude, I know you've got value that you can bring to your audience, the teens, the adults that you work with, whatever audience that God puts in front of you. I know that you will be able to add value to them. And which was great, right? I'm thankful. It was a blessing. And I'm like, bro, let's definitely keep in touch. We exchange contact information. And, he's like, and so then we're like, hey, I'll be praying for you. And he's like, man, that'd be great. And so boom, we kind of parted ways. And then then we were getting ready to go. I got in my car and he pulled up next to me, and he's, rolled down the window, and he's like, dude, I was not supposed to come to this gas station. He's like, I was actually took a wrong detour that brought me out of the way, and I ended up at this gas station. Like, dude, this was not coincidence. This was God. I'm like, bro, I 100% I believe you. And I'm like, bro, again, you got this. Like, I know you can make this happen. But the reason why I said that, so boom, we left and stuff. Hey, we'll be in touch. And he's like, man, I want to watch your podcast and all that. And so, but the reason I say delayed social awareness, as I was reflecting on the conversation with Clint, I think just looking at his body language now in hindsight, I think deep down inside what I could have said better and more intentionally is that he can do it. I gave him tips. I gave him some advice. I wish I had more social awareness in that moment to notice his nonverbals and been able to look at him in the eyeballs and tell him, you can do this. You got this, Clint. You got it inside of you. If that's what you feel God is calling you to do, start working on your craft. Now, I did the whole start working on your craft kind of stuff, right? Because I gave him tips and advice. I just wish I had been more mindful and more present and more socially aware, looking at his nonverbals, realizing and remembering his background that he shared. Because also, based on he's had a rough background. He's got a tough story. I doubt, my hypothesis is, I doubt that he has been surrounded by a whole lot of encouraging support. It sounds like he has been the main pillar in his life and has been the main pillar for a lot of other people. I'm just not sure how many people he has had in his life supporting him, encouraging him, uplifting him, sowing into him, letting him know that he can do it. And man, I feel like I missed an opportunity to give laser specific words that, Clint, you can do it. So Clint, If you are listening, that would be a blessing, man, if you were actually listening to this episode. What I want to tell you that I missed the opportunity to, I wish I had thought of it in the moment. I call it delayed intelligence. And attaching the EQ, delayed social awareness. Clint, you can do it. You have got an amazing background, amazing stories, your resilience, your mental toughness, your emotional toughness, your physical toughness. What you have had to overcome and endure is you have a unique story, Clint. You can become a motivational speaker. So while you are helping out troubled teens, challenged teens in the foster care system, be working on your craft. Use those teens as your audience to work on your craft of becoming a motivational speaker. I totally believe in you, Clint. I'm so proud of you, and I know you got what it takes, brother. The takeaway, hopefully, for all of you listeners is, how can we be more socially aware when God gives us those unique, brief moments? We spent maybe 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes at the gas pump, that's it. How can we be even more aware about how someone's doing? Because everybody's got a story. Everybody has a story. All you got to do is ask and care and actively listen and ask questions and be curious. And you'll be amazed at the stories that will come up. When someone tells you their story, they open up and give you the gift of their story, how can you encourage them, empower them, maybe even equip them along their growth journey that God has them on? And maybe it's just validating and affirming their emotions and where they're at and listening. That's a gift all by itself. Even if you don't give them any tips, advice, just caring, actively listening, and asking questions is a gift all by itself. Thank you for being a part of my journey and letting me be a part of your journey. If you want to find an awesome, encouraging, emotional fitness community, check out the EQ Mafia at eqgangster.com. Thank you to our sponsors, classicalconversations.com, an awesome nationwide international homeschool program, K through 12 homeschool program that doesn't teach what to think, it teaches how to think in community, in discussion and conversation with your peers and classmates. Thank you again, classicalconversations.com. This episode is sponsored by Classical Conversations. Since 1997, Classical Conversations has been equipping families like yours with the resources to homeschool with confidence, following a classical curriculum rooted in a Christ-centered worldview alongside other families in a local community. Homeschooling is doable with Classical Conversations. Check out classicalconversations.com/Gibbons for more information. Again, that's classicalconversations.com/Gibbons, Gibbens.